Guess who's got a gamer chair now? Me! Wanna see what happened to the other one? It's there.
To be more exact, the support broke. How did this happen? Your guess is as good as mine.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Worst to Best, the series where I rank everything from worst to best. No, it's the series that I eat chips ahoy. So today, I'm going to be ranking all 26 of David Bowie's studio albums. But there's one twist. I'm totally new to Bowie's material.
While I always knew about the man, throughout my whole life I barely heard any of his stuff, like Modern Love, Fame, Starman, etc. But I never heard the whole album until like 2 months ago. And I always felt like I was missing so much, knowing how chameleonic he is. So, to compensate for all the wasted time, I spent the last 2 months digging deep in his discography. And now I heard all of his albums. And what I'm gonna do now? Come on, it's the title of the video.
So one quick thing before I move on. This video is inspired by Mike Desner's video on Bowie's discography. I recommend checking it out because it has also the story of Bowie, and I'm not going to be covering that, so check it out.
And one final thing that I think it's very important to freeze out. I only heard to each of those albums once, and my ranking might look completely different a year from now. And that's likely, considering you guys will see some strange placings in here. So now, I think I don't have anything else to say. Let's go to the list! Well, the first thing I gotta say, the 80s weren't too kind on Bowie musically. You'll notice that based on my opinions on the albums of that decade. But by far, the worst one has to be Tonight. I gave scores to all the albums in this list, and Tonight is the only one that got a score below 50% superb. And there's a single reason for this. Unlike all the other albums, it is so bland. This is one of those records that enters through one ear and leaves through the other. Nothing here is absolutely memorable. I only remember that my favorite song in here was Dancing with the Big Boys because I wrote it down. Overall, it sounds fine. It has a similar feel to Let's Dance, but with much less stronger hooks. It is basically a glorified B-sides album. There's no other release I could put it in the last place. Now, this one is interesting. It's basically Tonight Part 2, except the hooks are a little better.
A little bit like this.
But unlike that record, this one has a certain jank in it, that makes this LP so odd, that it ends up becoming interesting how odd it is. I don't think it's very good still. Time Will Crawl is the only song that I actually feel like returning to every now and then, but I think it has at least a little something that makes it more memorable in his discography.
Sunday, my passion's never ending and I'll love you till Tuesday.
Bowie's debut album! What the heck is this? It's honestly even hard to describe it. It's unlike anything he released afterwards. It's in a more folk rock direction, but it feels like a novelty album. I can't take it seriously. It's like Bowie didn't know if he wanted to be a folk singer or make music for children. It feels very naive, especially due to songs such as Sell Me a Coat and Come and Buy My Toys. But at the same time we have Please Mr. Gravedigger that has a much more serious tone, so I don't understand what's going on here. And also, I don't even know if I should consider the song a song. It's just Bowie singing over sound effects. Basically the father of ASMR. Despite all of this, it's a strangely endearing record. I can't help but put a smile on my face when I hear its bizarre music that sounds so disconnected from the world around it. It's not very good still. In fact, musically I think it's his worst album. But the novelty of it all makes it goes a few spots above. Also, Love Till Tuesday is my favorite track in here.
Before actually talking about the album, I just want to take a moment to appreciate the album cover, because it reminds me of that Bro You Good meme. Jesus Christ, it fits perfectly. Right, so from this point on, I can say that all the records that are coming are at the very least good.
It has a very interesting blend of electronics with a more alternative rock-oriented sound, and it feels even a little sci-fi-ish to me. This description, at least to me, is very appealing. But the album as a whole is quite forgettable. Not even my favorite track is one that gets in my head, even though I generally think it's alright. I only wish I liked it more, and that it was more well executed, because the sound does have potential. Alright, this is the first Marshall this is way too low what the hell is wrong with you moment. And warning, it's not going to be the last. So for the record, yes, I'm already in my I like it zone. Modern Love is awesome. Let's Dance is good, but I don't think it should have been 7 minutes long. Cat People is my favorite song of the record, and Criminal World is pretty neat. And there's the rest. Yeah, I don't really care about those. The sound of this record is fine. It's well produced, you know, for 80s standards, but I do think it lacks when it comes to songs that are actually worth of revisiting. That's why it's so low. I often see this album being ranked at last place in ranking of Bowie's discography, and I personally think that's overkill. It might not be his most interesting record, but it's not bad either. It's cool to see Bowie dive into this more sophisticated pop territory, even if at points it does sound like he's phoning it in a little. At least the first half of the album is pretty solid, and Let's See You Jump They Say is my favorite song in here. And by the way, can somebody explain me why in the song Looking for Lester, there's a Super Mario World coin noise? I don't know if that was supposed to be there, or if it's a mistake in the Spotify version of the album, but it sounds completely out of place, and it happens only once in the track. Like, why?
Hot tramp, I love you so.
Yeah, here we have another Marshall, this is way too low, what the hell is wrong with you moments. But yeah, I just don't care much about Diamond Dogs. This is Bowie's final album of the glam phase, and it's clear why it's the case. Because he doesn't sound nowhere near as invested in this album as he was in the previous ones. Sure, we do get Rebel Rebel, 1984, which is my favorite song of the album, and some other great tunes such as We Are the Dead and Sweet Thing. But in general, it just feels like this wasn't the record that Bowie wanted to make. Again, it's not bad, I like it, but it's pretty low in my would return list.
This is ground control to Major Tom.
For this next entry, we have Bowie's second self-titled album, an album that has, get this, my favorite song in Bowie's entire discography. And you have 2 neuros or more, you already know that I'm talking about the one, the only, Letter to Hermione. Psych! It's Space Oddity, of course it's Space Oddity, how could it be Space Oddity? Well, besides that one gargantuanly good song, the rest of the album is solid. Nothing comes nowhere near as close as reaching the heights of that track. But we do have some good ones afterwards. Janin and Wild-Eyed Boy from Free Cloud are the ones that come to mind right now. But in a general, it feels like a massive improvement from his debut. But of course, it's still just a stepping stone, even if one that has a fantastic track within it. This is considered Bowie's weakest album in the glam era, but honestly, I take it over Diamond Dogs. I don't think the best songs of this record matches the best of Diamond Dogs, but I do think the overall track list of this record is more enjoyable. I like way more the sound of guitar in this record, and even if the highlights aren't as strong, they're still worthy of revisiting, especially the opener Rosalie, my favorite song of the record. The best way I can define this album is that it is to Aladdin Sane what Tonight is to Let's Dance, a follow-up that is just meant to be an extension of that sound, even if the original is way more interesting. I think I particularly appreciate in this record is that while it's not one of Bowie's most well-remembered ones, it still has a charm of its own. It reminds me of the Earthling records, due to its more ambient tracks, just updated to modern times. And overall, it does that in a pretty compelling way. The title track is easily the best moment of the record to me, but we do have some other great tunes in here, such as The Mysteries and Dead Against It. If you haven't ever checked this album, please do, it's worth your time. I know Blackstar is Bowie's farewell album, but this one feels like a build-up to that record. This is possibly his most all-over-the-place album, because it feels like he's paying tribute to the sounds from his past. Like, some tracks in here reminds me of Outside, others of his glam era, others of Earthling, and even some feel like a prototype of what would become Blackstar. It's definitely a record that you should check out. It may not be one of his best, but it's very well executed. Ignoring its god-awful DeviantArt album cover, Reality is a pretty good album. The sound to me is a very normal pop rock sound. It doesn't have any strange gimmicks surrounding it, besides pulling some sounds from Heathen, or maybe even from Earthling, but it's not very flashy pulls. The first 4 songs are great, especially opener Nuclear Star. Sadly, nothing afterwards reaches a peak once again. But also They Don't Sink and Perish. It's an album worthy of your time, but it's not an essential listen in his discography.
Is there life on Mars?
Hello? Yeah, I'd like to make a life insurance, please.
Yeah, I know how universally loved this album is, but for some reason, it doesn't fully click with me. Of course I do like it, but I don't really feel like it's one of his best. I do like songs such as Life on Mars, All Your Pretty Things, and my favorite song of the record, Quicksand. But besides that, it feels like just a build-up to what Bowie was going to make in the future, even if it's a quite beautiful record. I honestly hope this grows on me in future listens. Outside to me stands out as one of Bowie's most audacious records. It is one of his best though, yeah, almost there. When I listened to this, much like The Next Day, it had some cues that made it feel like a predecessor to Blackstar, possibly because both albums have this very somber tone and are pretty dark. The main flaw I have to mention here is that it does not justify its length. It's Bowie's longest record, with over an hour of duration, yet I feel like some songs could have been cut for the sake of making the record feel a little more dynamic. Besides that, overall it's a pretty nice ride. Also, my favorite song is the title track. Up next is Heathen, Bowie's first record in the 21st century, and it's a wild ride. I'd say that this is the closest Bowie has ever gotten of making the concept of hours work. But I can't because the electronics are way dialed down. It's more background thinking here. This is more an art rock record than anything else, and it's a really good one. Afraid, Cactus, 5:15 The Angels Have Gone, especially I've Been Waiting For You. This album has some of Bowie's most underrated tracks. And even though it does have some low points, it's still a very captivating record. I'm looking forward to listening to this one again. Aladdin Sane feels to me like, I was going to say the evil twin of Ziggy Stardust, but it's more like a menacing brother. The style and production of this record feel more punchy, like Bowie was having a bad day when he recorded this. But he didn't want to let it flow to the record style, yet it did a little anyway. And while in that aspect I like it way more than Ziggy, the compositions do not hit as hard. They are good, but not extraordinary. The only song that I caught myself returning oftenly after I heard the album was my favorite track, Cracked Actor. Again, just like Hunky Dory, I hope this one grows on me as I keep listening to it. Now we are entering the top 10, and we have Low. And from this point on, I love all the albums in here. Low is indeed a quite experimental point for Bowie. The first album of the Berlin trilogy is also probably its least accessible, due not only to the ambient cuts, but the songs feeling more artsy in a very strange way. That is a compliment, by the way. There's a lot to love in here: Sound and Vision, Be My Wife, and especially my favorite song of the record, the instrumental Subterraneans. It may be the lowest ranked album of the Berlin trilogy here, but it's still a great work. Young American shows Bowie dive into the blue-eyed soul territory. And my god, I wish they dived more into this genre. Wait. Never mind. This thing is great. Some of his catchiest hooks are present here. And it has my overall second favorite Bowie song. Not Fame, not the title track, but Fascination, which I consider to be his most underrated song ever. This is one of those albums that exhales cool vibes. And while it does have a few duds in its tracklist, I still love this record regardless. Up next, Lodger, the black sheep of the Berlin trilogy. I don't know why. This may be a little more accessible than Low, since it has no ambient cuts. But we do see some of Bowie's most interesting experimentations in here, blending elements of new wave and music from all over the world. It's quite a trip, and a pretty underrated record in my opinion, especially due to cuts such as Fantastic Voyage, Move On, and my favorite track, DJ. The 80s might have been rough on Bowie musically, but at least we had one silver lining to it, right in the beginning of the decade, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. An album that feels like a calm down after the Berlin trilogy. It kinda feels like a bridge between the trilogy and Let's Dance indeed, but it's strange when the bridge is better than the final destination. It's like that saying, it's not about the treasure, it's about the friends making the way. All songs in here are top notch. Passion, Teenage Wildlife, Kingdom Come, Up the Hill Backwards, and of course, my favorite track and signature track of the record, Ashes to Ashes. I do agree that it is an album that makes less risks than its predecessors, but that really doesn't matter when the result is that good. A lot of people say that Hunky Dory is Bowie's first great album. For those people, I just say,
it's false. No way. Not this time. Not this time. No.
The Man Who Sold the World is when David Bowie became David Bowie. And believe it or not, there's no deep lore to why I like it. It's just a really great collection of well-produced glam rock tracks. It's an album that peaks high because of its consistency. From beginning to end, you're in for a great ride, with the pinnacle to me being All the Madmen. But there's no going wrong in here. Bowie's true I'm here bitch moment. I don't think I should call this album a sequel to Young Americans simply because it has some elements of soul in it. Station to Station goes beyond that to me. The Thin White Duke, songs longer than the average, incredible consistency in quality in the records, the darker takes on soul and funk. Jesus Christ, this is such a good album! I'm honestly shocked this is only at number 5. If this came from any other artist, it would have been like a top 3 material for sure. And again, it's so consistently good that I even have a hard time naming a favorite song. I guess Golden Years. Regardless, definitely don't miss out on this. It's fantastic. Needless to say, Blackstar is a swan song for the ages. Bowie finished his career with his darkest record that not only is emotionally charged, but it's also one of his best records musically. It's quite shocking that never before this had never dived into proper jazz rock. And this worked fantastically. While I could name either the extremely experimental and ominous Blackstar or the heartbreaking Lazarus to be my favorite track of the record, I decided to go with Sewer in a Season of Crime, since it has a better balance of those elements, and it's a much easier song to return to, which, by the way, that is probably the reason why this record doesn't rank higher. The first album I heard in this entire journey managed to still land itself in the top 3. Ziggy Stardust is a legendary album. Some of the greatest rock tracks ever made are present here, and it's one of Bowie's greatest achievements indeed. I honestly have a hard time imagining a person saying seriously, yeah, I don't really like Ziggy Stardust, because pretty much everything good about Bowie in his glam phase can be exemplified here. His most quintessential album for sure.
I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world.
We've arrived here, at my Joe Budden number 3 on this list. I know this is easily the strangest place in here, and it's totally here for personal bias. I love industrial rock, I love drum and bass, I love art rock. So a record that blends all of those 3 genres is just pure gold to me. I had such a fantastic time listening to this, and I understand this record might not be for everybody, but it's totally for me. And boy, what can I say about Dead Man Walking? Freaking Dead Man Walking! And a golden medal goes to Heroes, the second statement of the Berlin trilogy, easily Bowie's greatest work in my opinion. It's basically a more accessible version of Low, the songs are more snappy, and it has a title track that is just one of the best songs ever made. Even the ambient tracks are better here, even though my favorite of the ambient tracks is still from Low. And boy, for me to choose a favorite song, my god, what a hard task. It's like choosing my favorite sibling. I guess right now I'd pick Joe the Lion, but this is entirely subjective. Next week I might have a different one, so of course this means this record is very consistent. Easily the album that makes me the most excited when I'm listening to Bowie's music, and therefore it's the winner of his discography to me. Hey, so 2 quick bonus lists for you guys here. My 10 favorite songs and my 10 picks for the most underrated songs by him. Hope you all check out the underrated ones.
So yeah, that was it. It was a very demanding experience, but it was very worth it. Now I have a much bigger respect to the man's craft, and I'm looking forward to doing this with other artists. So feel free to send suggestions for other videos in the series. And now, if you excuse me, I need to get rid of this chair.